Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Creator Space Online recording voiceovers and audio podcasts. Thanks for just adjusting the time. We had a scheduled maintenance that we had to get to, so just if you're joining us, don't worry, you're here. It's live. We're happening right now. So yeah, thanks again for joining us. I just want to say my name is Tom Sternat. I'm the lead digital artist of the Creator Space project, and as part of this project, we have some really exciting aspects and tools. So I just want to thank all our partners in this project that we have on this. So we have the Canada Council for the Arts, and then we also have all of our library partners. So we have the Blue Mountains Public Library, Collingwood Public Library, and the Wasaga Beach Public Library. So it's all through these library partners that you can actually access the programming. We have digital arts equipment. Part of it is sound recording equipment. And then also we have digital arts computers. So there's iMacs, 2 iMacs at each library that you can access fully loaded with DaVinci Resolve editing software. That editing software can be used to work on your sound and your voiceovers and things like that. So today what we're going to do is we're going to cover essentially the idea of recording voiceovers and audio podcasts. So really specifically just the concept of recording using the tools that we have through our Creator Space project. So that's what we want to get into. So preparing your voiceover recording, we're going to look at, what do you need to do to be ready to record your voiceover? Preparing your audio podcast, what do you need to, prepare for recording an audio podcast? Documentary versus fictional production requirements, how that could differ. Writing a script, in-person or virtual recording, portable sound recorders, and, also concepts of using a smartphone and things like that. So a lot of fun topics. So preparing a voiceover recording, what does that mean? How does that work? One of the first things you need to do for a voiceover recording is to write your voiceover and have the script ready to read while you record. Now, what I always recommend is, if you can have like an iPad or a computer screen, something large. It can be handwritten, but you want something large so you can really see the words that then you're ready to record. And that can really work well. So I highly recommend an iPad. Can be, great use for voiceover recording. Practice reading your voiceover before you go to record it. This is really important. This will help ensure you that it's fluid and not too wordy. If you can't read it out loud, what you've written, you won't be able to record the voiceover. So make the adjustments. If something is really hard for you to say or hard for someone else to say in practicing, you don't need to record it that way. So, it doesn't hurt. And some people have the opinion just to start recording right away, but I think it doesn't hurt to just have a bit of a practice, see what it's like if it's yourself or if it's someone else that's doing the voiceover. Practice it through, see how it's working, and then make adjustments before you go to recording it. It could be really awkward and painful to record something that is hard to say. And, so try it yourself. If you can't do it, you can't really think that someone else will be able to do that same kind of voiceover. So, really practice it out, hear it, see what it sounds like, because there's no other way to really figure out if it's too wordy or if it's fluid until you've actually said it. And, that's the same idea with anything. So, write that script and that's it. So the voiceover recording, typically we use voiceovers in film and video productions to help explain or fill things in, narrate. Documentaries use voiceovers a lot to explain, tell us where we are, tell us what's happening with the visuals to help guide us through. But also voiceovers that are more known as narration can occur in a dramatic film. So you hear like that narrator voice that's narrating something. It could be a character narrating what's going on in their lives. So there's different uses of voiceover. Voiceover can also be perhaps a way that you want to present something. So let's say you're, again, doing something like digital arts projects, so an illustration. Maybe you want a voiceover explaining how what the meaning behind it, or what your thoughts are, or your process behind making it. So it gives people, the audience or the viewers, let's say it's presented online, it gives them the chance to hear from you as an artist. So that could be something really interesting to do. Voiceovers are also used sometimes in live performances. So dance, theater, we'll hear voiceovers, something that gets recorded. And voiceovers can be in audio podcasts. So then we'll specifically look at the same process as in recording voiceovers and recording audio podcasts. So I think that's the really fun thing, is that if you're already recording a voiceover, you can just as easily start recording an audio podcast. It's the same technical concept in how to record audio works in that manner. So it's a real fun tool. Okay, so that's the main thing. Preparing a voiceover, you need to write that script out. I would never try recording a voiceover just without any kind of script. It's really important to have some sort of a guideline, some sort of a breakdown, some sort of writing of what you're going to record. It's really hard to go in with a total blank slate and just say, hey, I'm going to just record a voiceover as I go. It could be really, really hard. Okay, so preparing your audio podcast, a little bit different. So before you go to record an audio podcast, you need to figure out what it is you're recording. And it might be in multiple sessions. Maybe your audio podcast is just like a voiceover and you're doing like an audio podcast documentary. So to do an audio podcast, this is what I recommend. And this isn't necessarily an exhaustive full list of everything, but this is, I think, a great way to get started of what you can do. So, if there's a documentary treatment or script, or a script for fictional storytelling. So you want to have some sort of a treatment or a script so you know what you're covering in your podcast. And I think that's really important to understand that. Then, when you go to record your audio podcast, what you need to figure out is, are you interviewing people? So you need a list of interview subjects, or are you using actors, so different roles? And in that case, you might need to do casting to have actors in the different roles. The next thing you need to look at is, what kind of equipment do you need for recording? The voiceover, it's basically the microphone, a condenser microphone, a sound recorder, and that's it. There's your voiceover. But for an audio podcast, you might need a blend. You might want to use the boom mic, the shotgun microphone that we use in film, that is a bit different than the condenser microphone. And that could be for a variety of reasons. Maybe there's a large group of people in the podcast and you want to just be able to move the microphone from from person to person. So that's the whole idea. So equipment for recording, are you going to take it from the library partners and get the equipment from there? Are you going to be using your own equipment? And that's fine too. Maybe you're using an iPhone or a mobile portable smartphone or a tablet, an iPad for recording audio. You could use that too. There's ways to input microphones into those devices too. A lot of really cool ways that you can do that. Then you need to schedule the recording. So if it's just yourself with a voiceover, that's it. If it's just yourself with an audio podcast, you schedule it yourself. Figure out when you can do it. But if there's other people involved for the voiceover or for the audio podcast, you need to figure out how to schedule them. Is it in person? Will it be virtual? There's a lot of virtual recording capabilities now and tools. To the person, if you're working with people that you're in the same area or region, they can take out this recorder too and record their own parts and then get it back to you. So you don't even necessarily have to be there with them. You can see them virtually, perhaps through video conferencing, but they can record the audio themselves. And that's been a very common thing. We've been seeing a lot of that where people send cameras, sound recorders to get people to self-record their documentary interviews, and it can work quite well because if you're video conferencing with them, you can see what's going on, make sure that they go through levels, just like what we'll talk about today, and positioning of microphones and get all of that sorted properly so it can work quite well. Okay, so that's the idea of the podcast, in person or virtual. So this is more on that. So in-person recording, it's achieved by using separate rooms for each person with cables in between, if you're doing in person, or it could all be in one big room. And if everyone's sitting in the same room, you just have more of a problem with isolation in terms of, you'll hear one microphone over the other microphone, but condenser microphones are really great because they don't pick up a lot of extra sound. So in our sound kits that we have with our library partners, there's one condenser, one boom mic. So you could use one or the other, and we also have the Rode Wireless Go lavalier. So you could use that as well. So technically 3 different microphones you could put to use and record your sound that way. Virtual recording, as I mentioned, great alternative. You can do that with the video conferencing. You can watch someone and guide them through the audio recording. They don't have to just be doing it on their own, but you could even get together that way virtually to guide them as they record. Okay, so voiceover and podcast recording setup. And this is really important because voiceovers and podcasts are best recorded using the condenser microphone. And that's what we'll be demonstrating with today. The condenser microphone and how that works and the best kind of setup for it. And essentially, this is the condenser microphone. It's this kind of a microphone here. Very typical. I think a lot of us are familiar with this kind of microphone in like kind of radio use, that kind of condenser microphone. You talk right into it, and that's it. It's a really great tool to use. I'm just going to adjust the stand here. Okay. So the condenser microphone is typically the one that you'll be using for your voiceover or audio podcast recording because it has a really great quality to it. It's really, again, directional, close. It's not going to take the ambience of the room. It's going to be very close. And then the other thing that you want to do is then we want to use what's called the pop filter. So we have these pop filters on top of the microphone. So you have the microphone, and then you have this pop filter in front, and this prevents moisture as you talk from hitting the microphone, and that causes pops or plosives. So that's really an important aspect of something to consider and make that work. So, using the pop filter, it reduces moisture hitting the microphone. That will in turn create a better recording, and it reduces the pops or plosives, they're called. The lavalier mic, I have the wireless Go system that is available through libraries. I'm actually using that on my own here in the studio, and you can hear that there's probably not a lot of plosives. I find that it's really good, and it's designed to have its own pop filter is basically on top of the microphone. The condenser mic is basically open because it can be used for instruments as well. So the pop filter is what you need to, use it for vocal recording. So that's the whole idea. I guess we should really identify, this is what we're talking about here is, voiceover podcast recording. It's all vocal recording. We're not talking about recording instruments. Okay, so then keep the subject close to the microphone. So these condenser microphones, they're designed to be very close to the recorded subject. So I think that's something really important to remember is that, keep it really close to the subject, and make sure that that can work. And keeping them close gives you the best quality recording. It gets rid of any kind of room sounds, and also maintains the proximity. The quality, I think, is really key. Close quality. The other thing to do is maintain directional control. Ensure that the microphone continues to be aimed at the subject's mouth when recording. So off-axis recording will always sound a bit muted. So it's not an ideal way to record. So that's something really important again. So maintain that directional control. And, if you keep the microphone aimed at the subject's mouth, then, while you're recording, then you get the maximum quality. And it's, that kind of muted, it can sound muted. It can sound also a little bit bassy because you're not getting the full dynamics of someone's voice if it's not pointed at them. And we've put stickers essentially on the fronts of microphones, but oftentimes you'll basically have, you'll see this like the Shure here. I'm just gonna get the focus on it here. So see how it says like Shure, whatever the microphone is, usually the name of the microphone's on the front. And if I have this flipped around, I'll be on the back, and that will not be an effective way of recording because then I can't, it's designed to only pick up from this side. It's not going to pick sound up from the back. It's not going to pick sound up from the side. So it's really important your face needs to be right in front of it. And in essence, we also put this pop filter right in front, and you're talking through the pop filter. This is holding back any kind of moisture, pops. It's not hitting the microphone diaphragm in the middle here, and that way you're not getting kind of pops or plosives. And that's really, really an important tool in our voiceover recordings to make sure that you don't get those pops and those hits into the recording. So that's it. So maintain that directional right in front. There's a tendency if people are talking, especially if, let's say, the voiceover is one thing, but try to keep a screen in front of the person so they can read the voiceover. If it's to the side, they can quickly turn their head, and that could be a problem. They'll turn their head and read, and then the microphone's over here. You can see the microphone down here, and if I'm on the side, that's not helping because then I'm turned around and I'm looking this way, but my mouth is not looking this way, so I'm off axis immediately. So that's going to be a bit muted. Quality's not going to be as good. So you want to always keep it right in front. That means the screen should be right in front of the person as well to maintain that proximity and the directional control. Okay, so let's go through some of the steps. So we talked a little bit about this in we had another session. If in case you missed it, you can catch the replay of it. So I'm basically using the sound recorder. I have the condenser microphone. They look like this. Now we have a couple different ones. We have an MXL version in our sound kit, and we have an Audio Technica one. And both of those condenser microphones are available in the kits, and they come with from the Wasaga Beach Public Library and the Blue Mountains Public Library. And we also have a sound recorder. All three libraries have sound recorders specifically. So that's the great news, that you can access that equipment. And so the condenser microphone is ideal for voiceover. So we're going to talk about this kind of equipment, and then I'll get into some alternatives of what you can do as well. So the voiceover podcast recording. So generally in a podcast, whether it's actors, interviews, or anything, I highly recommend setting up these condenser microphones. So you can do one at a time. So if you're doing an interview, you could also use the boom microphone that we have here. So this is that shotgun microphone. So the shotgun microphone, the boom mic, can be used, let's say, for you, and then you can do the condenser microphone for your subject. And that way you got two microphones, or you can use the wireless mic as well. But again, overall, voiceover and podcast recording, you'll find, I find, and you'll find that you have the real best quality with these condenser microphones. So you simply set them up on they're XLR based, and they also require phantom power. So phantom power is the use of 48 volt power that runs through the recorder to the microphone to basically power it. So you put the XLR cable, just goes right into the bottom here, right? Okay, and that's that. I'm just gonna tighten that up there, and that's attached. Now the other end is gonna go into our sound recorder. And that goes right here. So the other end, take the other end and put it into the sound recorder. Okay, and now I'm going to power the sound recorder on. So this is a Tascam DR40, very similar to the Zoom H4n. Zoom H4n you power on from the side. This one you just press the power button here in the front. Okay, there we go. Voila. It's going to power on. It's going to say, hey, do you want to go to phantom power? Yes. So it gives 48 volts to the microphone to make it actually work. Otherwise it won't be able to work. And then I go to record mode, and now you can see as I talk, the levels go up right here, up and down on the side, check, check, check. And what I can do then is I can adjust these levels right on the side here. There's basically going up or down. So watch this, if I press this, it's going down, 44, 43, 42, so on. So the optimum recording level is, there's just a little arrow here, and all the sound recorders come with this. That's about a -6 of total digital decibels. 0 is a total peak. You don't ever want to hit 0, because that's your maximum, and then your audio, this red light goes on, it's peaked, it's distorted, and it's unusable. So you're always trying to have almost your highest level right at this arrow. It can go a little bit higher if someone's like, if I start laughing or if I get a lot louder, then, it can go higher, and that's okay. And that's what's called your headroom, but you never want to hit that total 0. And the total 0, I don't even think, yeah, there we go. See, the red light went on if I go really loud, and you shouldn't click these, but I'm just trying to show you like that, boom, that total clip, that's distorted and unusable. So right now we're in the pre-roll. I highly recommend having a pair of headphones, so you can just put the headphone jack in here. We don't have these through the Creator Space because we just want you to use your own personal headphones or get your own personal headphones. Anything with a 1/4 inch input will work right here. And then I hit once, hit record again, and now I'm actually recording. So remember, the first time is this pre-roll to check your levels. Now I'm actually recording and the numbers move. So now I can record my voiceover. So what I would then do is I'd want to be really close. I'd want to put the pop filter up like so. It's basically right on top of the microphone. And then I want to bring myself in this close and say, hello, welcome. Check 1, 2, check 1, 2. And then at that point, if you're monitoring the level too, I can check my levels. Check 1, 2, check, check, check. This is a test. This is a test. Check 1, 2, check, check, check. And then when I'm done, I simply hit the stop, and the numbers stop recording, and I have that WAV file recorded. I can then take the SD card out from the side here, and the little SD cards on each of these recorders, click it, pull it out. I got my SD card, and this SD card can then go to the back of the iMac computers, and you can start working with the files. And that's all you need to do to record your voiceovers or the audio podcast. Now, some of the best practices, again, are making sure that people are close. So if I'm really far away, like you can't see me, my mouth is not near it now, that's too far. So that's about about 10, 15 centimeters away. You want to be really close. It's hard to get people to get that close, so even if they're about this far, that's okay. So as close as possible, try to really encourage them to be, the closer the better. Really good quality sound recording if they're really close. You see a lot of people, musicians, really, really close into the microphones, trying to get that whole richness of the sound recording. And I think that's something to try to achieve with this too, is getting that real close proximity, getting the rich sound recording to happen. And then that it's working well and so on. So with the audio podcast so the voiceover, again, you have a script, you're recording your voiceover just like I showed. That's that. With the audio podcast, the thing is then, are you recording voiceovers? Are you recording an interview? Are you recording actors doing lines? All of this can be done again with the condenser microphone. You might want to consider recording each part on its own. I would also recommend with a documentary-based audio podcast that record each interview separately and not to have multiple people, because that way it creates a really good interview atmosphere. I think that's a great, best practice in general for documentaries, not to have a lot of people, just record one person at a time. And from there, you have the interviews, you can ask the questions. And something that can be really fun is you can ask the questions, record your audio podcast, the interview. So the subject answers the questions, you talk with them. You could use one of the boom mics, so like this kind of microphone, or you can use like the lav mic, like I have, the Wireless Go, Rode Wireless Go system. Put that on, you can put that into the sound recorder, then you're captured. But what you might want to do is re-record the questions afterwards again using the condenser microphone. So then you can kind of, get the best questions. You can put kind of narration into it. So that's a real good best practices there too. So record everyone individually, because that's, what we have set up with the equipment. Record yourself with doing the interview if you'd like to on another microphone. So keep the other microphone. Again, this shotgun microphone is really good. Same idea, keeping it close to your mouth, and adjust the levels. And you'll have the boom microphone on channel 2 or channel 1, and then the condenser on channel 1 or 2 as well. And that's just identified through the bottom here. And basically here it says left or right, and that's also channel 1 and 2. So in case of a stereo, it's saying channel 1 is left, channel 2 is right, and that's how it works in the world of stereo. So it's a real a great tool to use and to be able to do the voiceovers. Now, you might be asking, okay, I want to know more about the sound recorder and levels and all this. So we have a great resource of YouTube videos that we have and gathered from our past workshops that's available on our YouTube channel. You can access that through tbmcs.ca. Go to our YouTube channel and you'll be able to watch those sessions. Now, what else can you do to sound record? Another aspect you can do is, if you don't want to use the condenser microphone for voiceover recording and audio podcasts, and we'll see this a lot in, kind of in the field, these recorders have their own built-in microphones, and they're quite good. Now, this can be an interview style where you can talk and then put it to the next person, and you can conduct an interview that way. Now, again, social distancing, it could be harder because it's pretty close, but you can also just ask the questions and have the person hold the recorder, and you can record great voiceover just with this sound recorder on its own. So if you don't want to deal with the condenser, or you don't have access to a condenser and maybe you just have a sound recorder, you try using these internal microphones. Same idea, leveling, you don't want to go above that arrow that gives you kind of the optimum peak. Don't want to hit 0, you don't want to peak. And then you're recording. You want to be in as quiet of a room as possible, turn computers off and so on. You can be outside, so think about the atmospheres, but then you might want to think about adding more sound effects and sound design. So again, we have great workshops on that are available. If you haven't joined us for our 10 o'clock one today, you can also send me an email and I can send you a link to that to rewatch it if you missed that one this morning. So that's basically what you need to do to get the best kind of recording. You can use the sound recorder microphones. Condenser my highest recommendation is to get right into this condenser microphone. Otherwise, you can use these microphones. And then the third option is you can just use your actual personal computer device. So your personal smartphone, tablet. So an iPhone, iPad. It records, it has quite a good microphone. You can get some really good recordings on that way. There's also an ability with some adapters to attach microphones to iPads, iPhones, like a lavalier, this like wireless Go system. You can put it into smartphone headphones, or you can put the USB-C. Some of the iPads have that requirement. So you can get adapters that you can plug microphones into. Typically, microphones in that kind of area they use these 1/4 inch ones. And that's like what this wireless Go system uses as well. It's a 1/4 inch mic input. A lot of cameras will have that kind of an input, DSLRs, video cameras, and phones can accept that. It just needs to be a smartphone capable cable that will work appropriately for the microphone, because a lot of them it functions like a headphone jack, so you have to have the third little line on that so that it works as a smartphone input. So there's a lot of options. So those are the 3 things. I would start, if you can, with the condenser microphone, sound recorder. Next, try using the sound recorder's microphones, internal microphones. And the third option would be you can record on your own device, so like an iPad or iPhone. Just always make sure your levels, you're not distorting, you're not fully loaded. I think that's really key, as long as you stay away from distorted levels. And you don't want to be extremely low levels, where if you try to boost it, there's going to be a lot of noise because it doesn't have the highest level. If you really aim for that sweet spot where they have the arrow on the sound recorder, that's on all sound recorders, the leveling, it always shows you kind of where your sweet spot is for optimum levels for voiceover, then you'll have a perfect recording. It will sound great. Keep the directional atmosphere going so that you have, you're right in front, pointing at the microphone. You're not off axes in any way. So you point right at the microphone, and then you have a really good, clean sounding recording. So that's really all the tips that I have for the voiceover recording, podcast recording. You just get started, get the condenser microphone. Now, to access the equipment, you just need to go on our website, tbmcs.ca. We have a proficiency test requirement during the project at this time, and you just go through it. There's questions. It takes you through the whole sound recorder, and it's a very in-depth lesson on how to use the sound recorder even further. So this is specific on, once you're using the sound recorder, how do I get into the specific, nature of recording voiceovers and audio podcasts, and we go from there. Another thing I'd like to say too for best practice is, quiet rooms, so you can put up, sheets around you. Some people try to find like closets or things for voiceover recording. The quieter, the better. If you have access to some sort of a studio type space with more sound insulation walls, that's great too. And also think about times of day, like if you're in your house and, eventually if someone's cutting the grass, or if someone's cleaning snow, or there's garbage pickup, don't record at that time. Try to find the quietest times in the day or evening that you can record and have a better optimum recording. And that's really my advice to you. So just want to thank all our partners again in this project. So we have the Canada Council for the Arts, and then we have our library partners. We have the Blue Mountains Public Library, Collingwood Public Library, Wasaga Beach Public Library. And again, you can access the CreatorSpace digital equipment, the sound recording equipment from our library partners. Once again, my name is Tom Sternat. I'm the lead digital artist of the CreatorSpace. Thanks for joining me, and be sure to check out our upcoming workshops. We have plenty of more workshops coming up for March, and we have some in-person masterclass workshops as well. So if you're a member of any of these 3 library partners, be sure to check them out. We have a cinematography one coming up in March, and then a film production one coming up in April. Those are our first 2 lined up. And I hope to see you again. So thanks for joining us. Have a great rest of the day, and all the best. Take care.